feel the two legs or knees with your hands. We want this play between the hands, very subtle, and like it's getting into the knees or the thighs, wherever your hands are. Reaching out, bringing it in. Take your time. Try just a little bit from here. Same sort of idea, but both hands sort of going over the top of the figure of eight. Think of the middle finger and just come up and then into the heart and down. Difficult to get them both together, so we'll just let them alternate. like a sense of play, each one is never quite the same as the one before. And the movement really is getting into the spine. Back to the legs. So a touch that is firm enough to allow something from the hand to come into the leg, but light enough to allow something from the leg to come into the hand. Picking up the stick. First of all, let's just play tugging it, and I'm twisting it. Gently. So the action of my hands working against the stick is getting into my spine between my shoulder blades. But there's also a feeling that the stick is beginning to soften and melt a little bit, so as though it is actually giving to this work. And then just change the direction and just push a little bit with the hands towards each other. And pulling. So it's switching frequently. Whereas your hands are trying to penetrate the stick. So the top of your arm at the shoulder is trying to penetrate into your body, especially your spine. Once it gets to the spine, it can travel all the way down to the sacrum and the tail and all the way up into the cranium. Behind the neck. But with no sense that the stick is pulling you forwards like this. The shoulders have to be able to go back. The arms have to be able to go behind you. You're strengthening the lower back and the mid back to try and push your sternum upwards. and then just allow the stick down. And then just hold the stick with one hand and bring the other arm behind, and then the other arm. So we're just trying to get it lower down the spine. So you just pause, just hold it like this, just breathe, and just feel that gentle pressure of the stick on your spine, working your vertebra forwards a little bit to straighten the spine up and lengthen it. Hold the stick like this and let it down a little bit more. So now you're holding the stick from underneath. So there's normally 2 or 3 vertebrae that are bulging back too much. We just want to find them, and then just let the stick and your patience work gently on easing them forwards. When they come forwards, it'll feel very much like your thymus is opening up and beaming up towards the sky, like a diverging light. And then you can just work it down a tiny bit more. I'm using the stick to help me scan my own spine. For me, it's exactly here where the spine is now. My spine really bulges back here as though it's broken. Most people, it's higher, like where your bra would fasten, or even higher. Let it turn, but keep that quite limited. My buttocks working into the cushion or the chair that is effectuating this turn. My mind is with the source of the movement, not with the effects of the movement. and then just let the stick down behind you. And now just linking the fingers together behind the back. Crossing your arms. You're doing this behind the back. So this is how you can work on the spine without the stick. So now my arms cross pretty much where the stick was. And now just bring the hands out again. And then just up and out. And now just turn one hand over to face up. And then is all the exercise is just reversing the hands. So turn the hands over, both. And then back again. Feel the energy flowing down towards the hand that's beginning to face up. So this action is like a pump that's sucking the energy to and fro. And then allow that flow to suck your head round as well. Slowly let it build up. Sinking, and very much with this feeling of the legs coming up a little bit, out, down, under, and in, exactly like the arms. Feeling that your hip bones, your iliac crests are really hefty. So I'm sinking down, bending the legs, but also squeezing my torso down into my sacrum, but also into my kidneys. I want a feeling that my kidneys are swelling with the pressure from above. So let's rub the hands. So we're just going to rub the hands to get them a little bit hot, and then place them over the kidneys. Over the kidneys. That whole kidney area between the bottom of the rib cage and the top of the hip bones. Just work it a little, just moving from leg to leg a little, but with that sort of prowling, listening movement. Rub them again. So you need to do this 5 or 6 times, but we'll just do it another time, one more. Feel the powerhouse of the kidneys. They're like silos or reservoirs. Storing up the energy, and they're very much connected to the Dan Shen. Now let's rub the hands again, and this time we'll put them on the sacroiliacs, just beneath the kidneys. And then now on the sacroiliacs. and then just into riding horse. How do I move? Very much like a tiger that's prowling. It sends out a foot. The foot really opens, the claws open, puts the foot down gently, and then pulls itself along, and the other one opens and reaches forwards. So trying its best to be as silent as possible, but also as ready as possible in order to pounce. And it is very much like opening your mouth in order to take something in and swallow. So here I'm opening the mouth. And then as I put the hand foot down and claim the ground, I'm swallowing something into myself. With the hand, you can pull it into the down chin. But we want the same feeling in the leg, because this is how we're wanting to move around with our body. So here something really opens up in this side, in this leg, and then I curl around and pull that piece of ground up into my down chin. So I'm really tightly in my belly. But that tightness is not a withdrawal or a cutting off. That tightness here really expands my energy, my hedgehog spines out. And in the same way that the arm becomes really round and really pulls out from the shoulder here, the sense that the hip is pulling out and the leg becomes really round. So when I come into the leg, it becomes round, a tight roundness, rather than folding. Feel the kidneys. And now let's just try making a circle. Maybe with this hand, just press into this point underneath the collarbone. So the soft part. We're wanting that to remain empty as I circle. And just imagine that the circle is going just behind your back. So really letting the shoulder out here. You have to stay sunk to maintain a root because it does tend to pull one up. And then some on the other side. Out with the shoulder. Feel it going behind you. Feeling like you're inside the circle. And then just both. As you reach, as you allow the elbow really to pull your shoulder out from the body, it really softens here. The muscles here just sort of disappear. And now your arm should feel a lot bigger. like the shoulders are really pulled forwards. So you have to keep a lot of strength here to stop it coming too far forwards. My arms pull my shoulders forwards, and my sternum, my thymus, pulls my shoulders back. It's the problem with meditation. When you're like this, you often feel like your arms are sort of pulling you forwards and making this drop. So part of the work is just maintaining this driving surge up the spine. Just try a bit of the full and empty. Coming forwards and the ground is coming up. First, just get it as high as the Dan Chen. And then get it to come up to the heart. So to get it to come up higher than the Dan Chen, I really have to bring my sacrum forwards and get the sacrum underneath the heart. When I come into the front foot, there's a feeling that I'm leaning back a little bit with my back. And then when I go into the back foot, there's a feeling that I'm leaning forward slightly. So as you come forwards, just imagine that someone has your arms and they're pulling you in that direction. So I need to be leaning back slightly so that I can hook in to my front foot. Because if I'm leaning forwards at all, I'll be pulled out of my root like this. I want the feeling that the more they pull, the more it's driving me down into my leg. So I need a certain angle. And then when I go back into the back foot, I need to lean forward slightly because now they're trying to push me backwards. So I need to be angled slightly like this so that I can take that push down into my root. So it's just body mechanics, really. Let's get both going. Feel the energy that comes up, coming up the spine and into the opposite hand. And then just drop this hand down and beckon the energy up the back leg as you go into it, and use the arm to help distribute the energy into the other arm. I must stay open around the sacrum. So the more I practice, the more convinced I am that the operative word really is open. I have to keep the channels open in my own body. I have to keep the connection with the ground open in my feet. And I have to keep the energy coming out of the upper body. And my mind is just feeding the flow which the openness allows. If I start thinking to myself, then the flow will cease. And when you look at it, when you're meditating, you realize that whenever the internal monologue starts, whenever you start talking to yourself, it's generally self-pity. In some way, you're feeling sorry for yourself. So you just need to train enough, practice enough, so that you just become disgusted with that. You remember when we were kids, they used to call masturbation self-abuse. Well, talking to yourself in your head there's no self-abuse quite like it. Start feeling this sense of something opening in order to swallow. So here, in order to go back, I don't just move back and allow the energy to come up. I want to feel that opening like a vacuum that's sucking the ground up and so me back. Each time you move from one foot to another, it happens because there's like a vacuum opening up inside you. This is the form all the way through. Every posture is just this, really. And now let's just try with the other foot forwards. But now let's just try something a bit different. Tracing like a figure of 8. So going around the foot like this, and then let that loop back, and then around the foot here. The same thing really, opening up and creating that vacuum, but now I'm using the figure of 8 to trace it. The problem with any structure, with any form, is that the shape which we can see takes over from the energy. This is what we have to try and make sure doesn't happen. The figure of 8, the shape of the thing, is just an approximation. Feel the intensity. So here, it really opens you up. You know, if you were to open your mouth really wide, then that's associated with yelling or screaming. And so that would be really intense. So as soon as you open your mouth wide, you just feel charged up. We want that sense that has to happen in order to effectuate a movement from one foot into another. I'm not politely pushing from one foot to the other. I'm screaming myself forwards. I'm screaming myself back. Like bodybuilders, weight trainers, you know, they need to work at a pitch of intensity that will force their body to strengthen and grow. And so whenever they get to the end of their set, they're doing those final 2 or 3 reps, they're really screaming the bar up. We're just trying to take the work out of the realm of consciousness, of rational consciousness, and into energy and especially spirit. So, and now let's just try just a little bit of stepping, because this is exactly how we step in the form. In order to put the foot down in the form, you do this. And then in order to bring the weight into the foot, you do it as well. So I step and I'm swallowing that ground. I'm swallowing this ground. Before the foot actually goes down, I'm opening things up. I'm opening up a channel with my spirit for energy to flow. It won't happen if you're just polite and low key. Something in me has to really get underneath the ground and bring it up into my dantian. A Herculean effort. You become different, you become heroic, crazy, foolish, certainly irrational. When it's a riding horse. Feel these points here that we tried to get open when we did these. The way I do it with my students is I just get them into this, and then I just work my fist into this place. It hurts, it's tender, and it just forces the shoulder out and the arm around. Are you just working the knuckles of the fist into that place? And then we want the feeling that the same thing can happen here. I can work this fist into this joint here, but also underneath. So I want this whole area really open. You can do it when you're sitting down or really getting in. Problem with openness, we think we're open, but we're not really. We can always become a little bit more open. So the thing we were working on last time, there's openness, which is like a relaxed openness, which is just like a letting go. But then there's an openness which is more open than that, for which you have to use intensity to pull the thing open. And so like stretching elastic. Imagine the joint with its ligaments. I have to stretch it open. Those ligaments are trying to pull back like this. So I need to maintain like a level of intensity just to keep these spaces, especially here, open, especially when I'm supporting my weight, because my weight crushing down, the ground pushing up tends to press these things closed. So I really have to be firm and fierce in order to keep them swelling open. And then that energy that is required to build up like an internal pressure squeezes into this energy body that John was interested in. So this sense that you have these dragon's wings coming out of your shoulders at the back, you have wings coming out here. There's all these structures. You have this big, thick, meaty tail hanging down. Your calves are massive. And so in a sense, you're a bit like the devil, there's off his heels because he's a goat and his heels are up here. So he's on his toes. So the calves are really hefty. And in order to get it, you have to keep the pressure on. And that really is the sinking, a sense that you're crushing down, but also a sense that the ground is crushing upwards into you. Bring it up. Making sure you don't straighten the legs. Keep the legs bent. Just feel that play either side, like you're a little kitten and you're massaging the mother's teat to stimulate the milk flow. And then you can just slowly work up the spine with that. And that's the sense of something coming up from the ground. If I straighten the legs too much, I will lock out that play between the feet. And I'll also tend to force out gravity. Gravity will then be something that's operating upon my body rather than something that's filtering through my body and down. Natural forces we want to feel as energies. So for that, I have to let them into my body. I have to become intimate with them. Feel the Dan-Chen always clenching, but in a very juicy, lively way. It's like a heart, really. It's pumping like a heart, but it's also breathing like the lungs. sink down here, which allows me to slip forwards. I sink down here.